Okay, so what do I need to do to fix my appearance? I feel like there's something that has to be done. I instinctively know something's wrong. Okay, can I just be honest? Doesn't this just probably look better?
If you don't want to use headphones, don't use headphones.
But then am I isolating myself from you?
I mean, in what way?
I don't know.
I mean, I like them because I can just hear you better.
Yeah, I can hear you no matter what, so.
Bitch. Let's talk about Hitler.
That'll make sense later.
I'm immaculately conceived.
I don't know what to do.
I swear I'm not stupid.
Take it or leave it. Sometimes you just want to leave it.
If I gotta borrow my mom's underwear, I'm borrowing her underwear.
You just, yeah?
Misa likes the Jar Jar Binks.
I'm not gonna edit it out.
Oh no.
I don't know, like I think it was pretty great. Just staying on the
Sucks to
planet.
suck.
Why are you saying it with a question mark?
Clap, bitch.
All right, 3, 2, 1, action.
And we're live.
Oh, okay.
Did we not roll the intro? Wait, did I?
We can literally do it anytime.
Did I jump the gun?
No.
Oh, I forgot how
I'm
we did
Jessica.
this. I'm Anna.
Okay, this is more natural. This is natural for us.
Yeah. It's par for the course that we're just all over the place.
So guys, what we're going to cover today, which I'm just going to recap what we're covering because I don't know whether or not the first time I mentioned it is making it. So what we're covering today is we went and saw Andrew Schulz, Anna's man.
I love him.
And that experience.
It's great.
Spoiler,
it's great.
And then I watched the Formula One race last night in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun to watch. I wasn't there. I just watched on TV. And then we'll have some Why Were You Yelling stories.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be covering. And I guess we'll start with Andrew. Because that was an experience.
So I love Andrew Schulz. Let me just preface that. He's my favorite comedian. I watch like every podcast episode. I'm subscribed to the Patreon. Like, love it.
No, she's like literally obsessed with him.
Not like creepy obsessed. It's just I enjoy his comedy. I think he has interesting conversations.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the last time he was on tour, I didn't go see it. And I am so sad that I missed that opportunity. So I was like, the next time he goes on tour, I'm getting tickets. I'm making Jessica come with me. We're going to go see him. And so our time came.
It happened. And then literally we go, and then it was like, you bought tickets.
Mm-hmm.
A few months later, he's like, oh, I'm going to be in Jacksonville too. And I'm like, you bitch.
Yeah. So he has been like releasing dates like a couple at a time, like every couple months or so.
Yeah.
And so when he released dates in Florida, there were some in like the Tampa area and there were some in like the Miami area. And I was like, okay, well, the closest to us that we can realistically go to is the one that's in St. Petersburg, which is near Tampa. But it's like a good little drive away from us. It took us about 4
hours. And all Tampa's doing right now is construction. It was the worst thing ever. I never wish to drive through there again.
It was like worse than Jacksonville, I think. Because Jacksonville's always under construction, but like this was bad.
It just wasn't great at all. But he was great.
Yeah,
the drive to see him was not great.
Yeah. So we ended up going to that show, but then like literally a week or two before our show in Tampa, he released dates for Jacksonville, which is about 2 hours away from us.
Yeah.
And I was like, son of a...
And a way easier drive.
Yeah.
So
we went and saw him and it was great. The venue was super cool.
Yeah.
It was like an older kind of theater. So like inside was really nice. We had pretty good seats.
It's like the Duke Energy Center or the Arts or something.
Yeah. Our seats were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to, what else is there to say about it?
The fucking person who sat next to you. What the fuck?
Yeah. I'm like, what else are we talking about?
Do you have any way to pull up the fucking sound from that song? Please, you have to tell them. We have to play it.
I'll send it to you to put in. So
holy fuck.
We have our 3 seats. And so I ended up sitting, Jessica was in the middle. So there were 3 of us that went. She was in the middle. And so the guy that I ended up sitting next to.
Fuck, dude.
He found everything hysterical.
Everything. There wasn't anything that wasn't funny.
No. And then he was one of those people that had a very distinct laugh, but it wasn't just one distinct laugh. He had like 3 completely different types of laughs, each distinct from each other.
He was also very physical with his laughter. Yes. He had to lean forward a lot. Like
he was like rocking back and forth, like very moving a lot. It was like a full body sort of situation.
It was very I don't know. I mean, I guess he just needed attention. And he would yell.
Yes, he did need attention. So, like, he had these 3 distinct laughs that were loud. So you were going to hear him no matter where you were sitting in there. And so at one point, like, Andrew Schulz made a joke. And then the guy sitting next to me yelled out, "Got him!" And so Andrew heard him on stage and then, like, repeated what the guy said. And you know that it just made this guy's day.
He's now friends with him.
Yeah,
they're friends now.
And that happened kind of, like, earlier on at Andrew's set. So, like, for the rest of the show,
oh God,
he kept trying to make that happen again. So, like, he kept yelling out things. Like, it probably happened 3 or 4 more times. And I was like, you really want attention, don't you?
It was a lot. He also was one of those people that was like, let me repeat the punchline and laugh. And I just gotta say,
it's like if the punchline was like oranges, he would be like, "Ha ha, oranges!" Like every single punchline. And I'm just like,
So Travis went with us, and me and Travis like Andrew Schulz, but not as much as you.
Yeah.
So like, I knew it was gonna be a good time. I thought it was very funny.
Yeah. I think y'all were prepared for it to be, like, amusing.
Yeah.
And a few chuckles.
But
still,
I find his stand-up funny.
Mm.
The podcast is where I'm like, it's either, like, hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of it's, like, we've already talked about, is just because it's so... But, like, the way his podcast is set up is intentional. It's just different than, like, podcasts I listen to. You know, it's set up more like a TV, like, talk show kind of.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people.
A lot of personality. So I don't get to enjoy him as much
Mm-hmm.
because everybody else is on there, too. And it's just whatever. But I thought it was... Yeah, I mean, it definitely was funnier than I thought. Not because I didn't think it would be funny, but like you said, I thought it was going to be amusing, but I was like, no, I had some laughs. Not like that guy.
No.
I don't think anybody else did like him, but
no, yeah. Go ahead. You're saying about Travis.
Yeah, so we're sitting there, and I heard the guy next to you, but in my brain hadn't clicked yet that, oh, fuck, this is going to be a thing the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Andrew had said a joke, and it was one of those, like, like, it was amusing, like, clever jokes. I don't remember.
But it wasn't like chuckle, laugh out loud sort of funny. It was like, oh, ha.
It's the joke leading up to the big joke.
Yeah.
You know, it's the amusement. It's you're building.
Exactly.
And so, but Travis is like, he's like laughing, and I'm like, I know he's not laughing at Andrew right now because, like, nobody is. And so I know if nobody is, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guy did. And then I'm like, me and him make eye contact, like me and Travis. And I'm like, what? And he just is like, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then the guy laughs again. And my brain goes, oh my God, what the fuck? You can't unhear it.
No,
it clicks, it's done. So then I'm like laughing at jokes. Or if I didn't think a joke was like that funny, I was laughing anyway because that dude, it was too much.
It's like you said, if a joke doesn't, you literally leaned over to me at one point and said, if a joke doesn't land, this guy's laugh sure does. It makes up for it.
Literally, I was like, if I don't think something's funny, like, this dude's gonna make me laugh no matter what, because it's so just bless that guy's heart. So then at one point, and then you were like a little kid. Like, Andrew walked out and she was just, it was so.
I like lit up. Like
she did. She was like, and so I've like elbowed Travis. I'm like, look at her. And we're all like, oh, Anna had this is her moment. Like, that'd be me if I saw David Spade. I would die. I would literally pass out. And so then throughout it, I'm like, oh, she's really happy. And I'm like, so I'm not going to point out this dude. Maybe she hasn't noticed. Maybe she's so happy she hasn't noticed.
The jump, I noticed.
So then finally, he had a really loud one. And I'm laughing. And then me and you make eye contact. And I'm like, oh, she's aware. She knows. And it was just a thing throughout the whole show where, like, and he was vaping the whole time, you said?
Yeah. So at one point, like, toward the, like, when the host, so there's the host who's kind of like the warm-up act, and then there's the actual opening act, and then there's the main, which was Andrew. So when the host came out, Derek Poston, this guy at one point, like, just puts his hand up to his mouth, and I was like, and I could see it out the corner of my eye, and I'm like, what is he doing? And then I saw something light up.
Yeah.
But he held it there for like a minute. He was doing a long pull.
At least he wasn't a cougher, I guess.
Yeah, he did like a long pull on that thing. And then I saw the lights on it, and I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, it's a vape. Because then he pulled it down. And he very at least he didn't release it all in a cloud of smoke or vapor.
Well, he would have gotten in trouble.
Yeah, so he very slowly like let it out. But it was throughout the whole show. I mean, it was every couple of minutes he was doing it when he wasn't giggling and laughing so loud.
Anna described the laugh perfectly in the song Wipeout.
Yes. So the song Wipeout by, I think it's like the Beach Boys or something. I don't remember.
I have no idea.
But anywho, we'll insert a clip of it. It's the song that you typically associate with like surfers. So we'll put a clip in it here. But his laugh was identical. One of his laughs was identical to the laugh at the beginning of that song.
Here are just a few examples of this man's laugh, and it still doesn't do it justice.
And then another one of his laughs was like if you typed in ha 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 and then had like AI or like Siri or something read it back to you. That's what it sounded like, a robot saying ha 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 ha.
But like excited.
But like a little more enthusiasm.
Yeah, not flat, but like literally it's ha ha ha. Like it's literally ha ha ha, but like with a smile and a grin and not so flat. And it was just
But he was saying very distinctly ha ha ha.
And it was just, I wanted to, because you can't have cameras in there. And
they were like, no recording,
yeah,
no filming, no photography, or you'll get kicked out.
And so I'm sitting here, so like, one lady up in the Lincoln seat, she's all like, I saw, she had her phone, she went, she put that shit down, and I was like, I had my Apple Watch though, and I was like, I can get away with this. But then I was like, if I would have got anything Andrew said, I would have immediately gotten rid of it because I'm not trying to fuck over his stuff. But I was like, I gotta get this dude's laugh. Yeah. And I was scrolling through my watch, but they had people on watch there. But in hindsight, I probably could have, because that dude was ripping on his vape and nobody said shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but I was like, oh, God damn it. Because I was going to be like, Anna, hold my watch, put it on, and then just click this button. Just do it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't, but I wish I would have. But I'm also like, well, whatever. It was, but it was other than that, it was very, very fun. It was a great time. I mean, it was very funny. He had a lot of jokes. I had like, a lot of times, where a joke is going to go, or like, okay, like for instance, Mark, he told a joke about like adopt, don't shop. And then basically the punchline was just say you're poor. Right. I've heard that joke probably like by other people. I've seen memes of it before.
Like a version of that joke.
I've seen a version of that joke. Not saying it wasn't funny, because it's still funny, because your delivery of it and how you decide to get there could be different. But like you know the joke, you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
Andrew told jokes where I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like it was very, so that shit was very funny.
The stuff he was talking about is, I think part of why we didn't have an idea of where it was going is because he was talking about things that were very specific to him and his experiences.
Exactly, yeah.
So it was something I had little to no experience with at all. And so it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it was very, very funny. It was so weird to see him though, because like we were close enough to see him, but like I still found myself gravitating towards the screen. But like I could definitely look at him and see his facial expressions, but I just kept gravitating towards the screen. And I don't know if it's because I'm just used to seeing him on a screen, or if it was, but also it was like, we weren't on like the floor of the theater. We were like in the lower
first
bowl, sort of similar to like a stadium kind of thing. So like the lower bowl of it, I guess. And so it was bizarre though.
Yeah. So like so we had two like tall screens on either side of, I guess, like he's centered on stage. The two tall screens are basically pillars kind of like on either side of him.
Yeah.
But they're tilted a little inward. So like it made it kind of easy to look at him and the screen at the same time.
Yeah, it did.
As opposed to it being like super on the sides of the stage or like above him or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, because you want to, like, if you're seeing someone in person, you want to look at them, but also a lot of the stuff that he was doing, you have to kind of see his facial expression and what he's doing with his body, and it can be harder to see further away. So then you obviously want to look at the screen so you can see better. And also I have shit eyesight anyway. So.
Yeah, that wasn't. He messes with his mustache a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if it's intentional or if it's a tick. I don't know what it is, but he'd be talking and he'd be like, and I'm like
he's twirling the edge of it like an evil mastermind.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So that was a good time. I had fun with that.
So Formula One resumed. They had a little like 2-week break or whatever. So Yes, technically it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday because they were in Australia doing the race there, and Australia's like
it was 12 a.m. our time.
Yeah, they're like 24 hours or 18 hours ahead of us. How far?
I don't know, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay up.
They're like a day ahead of us.
I'm gonna watch Formula One. I got the Formula One TV thing, so I could watch the race live and all that shit. I had to stream it to my TV, and so I was just like, so okay, when the Super Bowl happened, I'm having a crisis kind of thing. I just feel like people that have something like that they're into tend to just be a little happier because they're like, oh, me focus all on this. Like
a team, like a sports team.
Yeah.
Thing.
I'm like, some people just love some football. And I'm like, I mean, is Taylor there? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Formula Drift's different. I'm all into that. Love that.
But I feel like Formula Drift's more like of a in-person.
Yeah, we get to enjoy it in
event.
person. I mean, I do I'll watch the events or I'll at least keep up because I like to keep up with my favorites. But I'm just like, it's not the same. And I'm not really in the NASCAR. I was in the NASCAR when I was little because my parents were, or my dad especially was. But it's just, So Formula One's been around I've known about it for a really long time because Travis has been into it since I've known him. He's always been a Lewis Hamilton fan. All that. He loves him some Lewis Hamilton. He's introduced me to some of the past really historic drivers, legends, things like that, right? And so I've always kind of had a foot in the door, but not that much. And then you got into it because of Drive to Survive, in 2020-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then, now you're a motorsports person.
Yeah.
In that, and I would say Formula One or Formula Drift you're now into. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me watch this shit. Okay, let me watch.
You're like, maybe I should get into it. I need a team to follow.
Well, I just need because I'm all this sport. Formula One stuff's all it's getting bigger in America, and which is cool because for a long time it was not. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, let me watch this. And before I was watching it, I've always been I'll cheer for Lewis Hamilton. That's Travis's driver. I mean, 7-time, 8-time world champion. Depending who you ask, I guess, whatever. Just saying. So. But then Max Verstappen, just Instagram really is trying to get me to be a Max Verstappen fan. And I was like, okay, found out more about him, want to give him a hug. At the end of the day, I'm like, I'm so sorry that you got left at a gas station. That's so fucked, bro. What the fuck? So, and it's just, I don't know. So I got a little soft spot for Max. And so I'm like, okay, let's watch this race. And I'm going to just watch. I'm going to get an opinion of my own. Who am I going to
You got to feel it out. You got to figure out who's your guy.
So my immediate listen, get the app because you can make a fantasy team. It's fantasy football, but not. It's fantasy F1. And you can make a team and it's all this stuff and you have a budget. So you can't just get all the good drivers. Mm-hmm. You can maybe get one. And then that was fun. But I was making my stuff and apparently I missed the deadline, so I didn't get to do it. But it's a good way to make you watch the qualifying stuff because it's going to really depend okay, who am I going to make for my team this time? So I'm into it now. I'm paying for it, so I'm into it.
Okay.
So I'm going to get on that.
If you can gamify it, she's in.
Actually, I think you can have 6 teams with the problem or 6 devices, but I'm like, my team is my fantasy team. You got to... It's worth it. If we're going to do it, we got to do it. Okay. If we're going to be these people, then we're getting our fantasy teams. We're going to jump in. So anyway, point is, I was like, okay, looking around, seeing who's who. And I'm familiar with a lot of these teams because again, I've never really watched, but I know because of Travis and things like that. And so
you're aware.
Yeah, I'm aware. And a person that Travis, he's super iconic is Ayrton Senna. Mm-hmm. He was with McLaren for a really, really, really long time. And so I was immediately kind of pulling for, without knowing how this race was going to go down, I was like, and they're orange, and that's my favorite color, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
You could be a McLaren girly.
But listen, I don't know. I don't know. So, because I'm like, do I want to be a team girly or a person girly?
That's where it gets a little hard.
Because I'm like, well, technically speaking, I'm going to say I'm a Lewis Hamilton person. And it's just because of loyalty. Mm-hmm. I was so disappointed. Travis was very disappointed for Max, though, in that race because 3rd lap done. And that just sucked. But here's the thing. I was like, okay, I'm going into this race. they've been pushing Max on me. I got a soft spot for him now. And obviously Lewis, right? Both those motherfuckers get out the race. Both of them.
They had DNFs.
Yes. Max had something wrong with his right rear brake. And I don't know if they even had front brakes, so I don't even know if I need to say right rear. But anyway, it was his back right tire. And then Lewis just had like engine failure. I don't know what exactly as the why and the twos and the hows, but like that's what happened for them. So I was like, well, they're out. And so at this point, Travis was like, guys, Verstappen's out. It's anyone's race. Let's go.
Literally, at this point, because Max has had such a good, like a dominant run the last like 2 years or so, at this point, I don't even care like who wins. Like, I don't care how he does or if he wins the race.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about how literally everyone else is going to do.
Yeah. And
because that's boring. When the same person wins every single time, I'm like, can we get a little competition? Like,
Max is like, sorry, I'm so fucking good.
I mean,
sorry,
it ain't,
I'm a winner.
I'm
No.
not saying it's his fault.
I mean, it's always like some of like the best like historical things within Formula One have been like, so you watched Rush.
Mm-hmm.
So like seeing these really iconic like battles and seeing things like that.
It's exciting.
So yeah, like Rush is Niki Lauda and James Hunt. And so, that's their story and things like that. And so it is exciting. And so
Rush is a movie, by the way.
Yeah, Rush is a Formula One movie about Niki Lauda and James Hunt and their Formula One drivers. And it's just awesome. It's a great movie. I've seen that movie like probably 3 or 4 times. I love it. But and Senna had the same thing with his own teammate at one point, like Alan Prost. And even I think towards the end there was some stuff with that when like Schumacher kind of had started. But anyway, point is, Formula One just has some really like cool and iconic like rivalries. And so right now we're at a place it seems where it's just there's not that. It's just like if Max is in his car and his car, and that's what was so like interesting is like it wasn't because Max did anything wrong. It was literally if that car's working, he's gonna be up there. But it's like it's literally the car and he's out. Kind of type of a thing. It wasn't like he didn't do anything to the car to make it fuck up. So it literally had nothing to do with his skill or like any of his decisions. And so, but throughout the race, Carlos Sainz, is that how you say it? Mm-hmm. He was just like killing it. He was just up there. He was like, nah. And he had just gotten back from surgery because he had appendicitis. And so he's like,
literally
I'm back.
2 weeks after he had his surgery, he's back in the car and wins the race.
Yeah.
Like,
and Ferrari didn't sign him back.
Yeah. And this is his last year with Ferrari for now. Who knows what'll happen in the future, but he doesn't have a seat for next year right now. So
but
he hasn't.
I guess a lot of stuff. Yeah. Because like they were saying that he's a free agent.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to get him up, which they will.
Yeah. Which I mean, he's such a good driver. Like when they announced that Lewis Hamilton had signed with Ferrari, like I understand Ferrari wanting to make that sign, like to get Lewis Hamilton, because I mean, he brings so much, like even just like value, like to the brand of Ferrari and their stock.
Yeah.
Just because of who he is. So I get it, but my immediate reaction was like, but like they've said that like Charles Leclerc is their guy, like he's their long-term investment. He's the racer they want to win a world championship with. And so he's like their number one driver. And I think that Carlos Sainz made a good second driver for them. He complimented Charles well. They get along as teammates. They're both good. They both won races.
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought that they worked well together. And then they brought Lewis Hamilton over. And I'm like, so who's your number one driver now, Ferrari?
That'll be interesting because I'm like, you have a 7-time
because teams can say, because teams can say all they want. We don't have a number one driver. It's, we treat our drivers.
Lewis Hamilton's not going to go over there to be the second driver.
No.
So
and
like
Charles has only ever been the number one driver pretty much since he got into Formula One.
Yeah.
Like he's it comes down to like Charles Leclerc is the future of Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton, I mean, let's face it, he at this point
I can't deal with this.
At this point, how many years does he have left in Formula One though? I mean, there's only so many
How
years.
old is he?
He's about to be 40.
Alonso's like what, 44?
I'm just saying, most Formula
And
One
that
drivers.
dude was killing it yesterday.
Most Formula drivers are not driving into their 50s or their late 40s.
But okay,
so.
but a lot of people, that can be said for like a lot of sports.
Yeah.
In general. I mean,
I say that to say, I don't know how much longer he wants to do this as a career, like, or how much longer he physically has.
He's not
going
gonna
to
leave till he gets another world championship.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, he's not gonna do it. Alonso's just like, I'm here for the fuck until y'all don't want me no more. And he just was killing it yesterday too. I mean, he was like, nah, I'm cool. I'm here.
Yeah, I think with Formula One, the state that it's in right now, the battle for first place isn't that interesting. It's more like the battle for who's going to get second, third, and then like the midfield is much more interesting.
Yeah, I was watching Ricciardo a lot. He was really no. Here's the thing. He had some penalty situation happen to him, so he had to start like pretty far back. I thought he started in the pits, but Travis said he didn't. I thought he started in the pits yesterday. But anyway, he was impressive to me because I don't know this for a fact because I'd have to go look at the numbers, but I'm like, he steadily climbed, like he stole places.
Mm-hmm.
He's
known for that.
And I'm like, so to me, yeah, he finished 12th, 11th, somewhere in this vein. But he steadily throughout the race was going up. And I'm like, and to me, that's like very impressive. So it's like, and his teammate did really well.
Mm-hmm. Yuki did good. Yeah. But yeah, Daniel Ricciardo is very much known for like taking people down, as it were. So overtaking them. So he's like, okay, who's next?
Yeah,
that one.
Who's
next?
Yeah, that's what Travis said. He said he's really good on the brakes.
He's like
good
picking
at,
them off.
Yeah, he said he's really good at like, all right, I'm going.
Yeah.
And so that was
he's kinda known
impressive
for
to
that.
me. Because I was like, okay, yeah, he was finished. Where he finished might not be like, oh, wow. But I was watching him the whole time just steadily climb up. But what sucks, though, is Lewis Hamilton, before his engine failure, he was. So, like, he started back, and then, like, he even had to, because he started on soft tires, and then he pit on lap 4 or 5, I think. So, he was on hard tires, so he wouldn't have to pit again. And so, he, and then on lap 13, but he was, like, steadily climbing up, too. So, I'm like, it was interesting. I don't know. I'm like, well, I could see why. I mean, I definitely see why Ferrari would want him, but it's definitely like, interesting. Because, yeah, he's not going to be the number 2 driver somewhere. He's going somewhere he can win because of his, obviously, like, he can do well with Mercedes. A lot of people have done well at Mercedes, but it's just not right now.
Mercedes just hasn't gotten it right this time around with this like regulation change the last couple of years. But
it's bizarre. The whole, like, when me and you were talking about it, and then Travis was telling me about it, the whole idea that you can like Red Bull going over their budget, and then all they do is pay a fine, but they get to use the car that they developed anyway.
By going
so
over
it's
the budget,
like. Yeah. Then what? Why wouldn't anybody just do that? If you can afford the fine, then like, if there's no actual, like, there's really no repercussion. You get to use exactly what you developed that you spent too much money to develop. Like, that technology doesn't get taken away from you. You don't have to start over. So I'm like, what's the like?
And that was a lot of people's argument.
What's the incentive not to do it then? It doesn't really, and that's no hate to like any of the drivers, but it's just like that doesn't really. It's not really fair. If you have a budget, then what's the point? Because then at that point, you're telling me, oh, I can just exceed my budget if I can pay for it. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, that's kind of bizarre. But anyway, I had fun watching it. I was very into it. I was like, and I didn't do any of the onboard camera stuff. Because with the F1 TV thing, you can literally pick a driver to follow the whole time if you want, but that's kind of boring. So... But what was wild to me is to see like how...
For those who don't know, the onboard camera, all the drivers have basically, it's almost like a GoPro. It's like they have a camera in their car. And so it kind of sits a little bit above their head, I think. And so basically you can see more or less what their view is from the car. And then you can also listen to the team radio when they're talking to their teams and stuff. So with the whatever you paid for, you can watch the race, but you can also choose to like... Basically, you're like, I'm going to watch this driver's onboard camera and stuff like that. But
and you can listen to their team radio the whole time. Mm-hmm. But I didn't do that. I just watched the race. But it was, Travis was like, well, just, who's impressed? Like, just watch
Who's
it.
your team?
Who's impressing to you? And I was like, I don't know who to pick. This is a lot of pressure.
I'm a Ferrari girl. I like Ferrari.
Part of me is like, I drink Red Bull every single day. So I should be a Red Bull person. The other part of me is like, then it just feels like I'm picking the winner. You know,
and we love an underdog.
It's not even, I think I like Max. I like his like demeanor where he's very much just like, yeah, I'm here and you know, yeah, I won. Like I'm like, okay, like I don't mind like the mellowness of it, but I am just like, okay, I don't want to be that person that's like when Tom Brady was killing it on the Patriots, everyone's like, I like the Patriots now.
It's like, well,
I
duh.
like the Patriots. Well, no, yeah, I'm like, that's annoying.
Yeah, you suddenly are interested in the sport, and your favorite team and your favorite driver is the one who happens to be winning. All right,
exactly. So I don't know as of now who I'm gonna pick. It's definitely gonna be. I mean, if I'm a Lewis Hamilton person, then I might as well just go ahead and buy Ferrari stuff. But I'm like, maybe I'll just have a McLaren jacket, Ferrari jacket.
I like McLaren for you. I feel that. I like McLaren for you.
Lando was funny in his interview. He just kept like trying not to laugh. And I'm like, it was crazy. Travis was like, did you notice how most of the team, it's like Ferrari, McLaren, even like, what's the fucking team Ricciardo's on?
Oh, RB. Visa Cash App RB.
Yeah. So like, ew.
Yeah. Some people I think they're being called RB, but some people are calling them V-carb.
I'm like, don't love it. I don't love that at all.
It sounds like pasta.
Haas. A lot of teams finished like relatively within each other.
Like the teammates finished close to each other.
And then I was like, you're fucking right, because George Russell said on that last lap, like he was finishing with Hamilton. He wasn't going to finish at all.
He's going DNF.
He said, I got you. Oh my God, that was not good at all. That was bad. So yeah. Anyway, it'll be interesting. I think I'm gonna watch them all. I can do it. I believe in myself. Mostly because, and I told Travis, I said, this is a dangerous thing for me because I have an obsessive personality. So if I decide to like this, I'm going to love it. I'm going to have strong opinions about it. And I'm going to just be all in. And I will be watching races with my hat and my jacket and everything. And I'm going to be like that person. That'll be what happens. And I'm going to have my fantasy team. It's going to be a thing. So I don't know what I want yet. I don't know who. I mean, I feel like I have to watch a few more to really just be like,
settle.
Yeah, to be like, okay, who's this gonna be? Like, who do I like? Like, whose story's interesting to me? Oh, did you see what happened with Williams? Did you read about that? That's fucked up, dude. That's so fucked. I'd be like.
So for those who don't know, so Williams is one of the teams. They have two drivers, Alex Albon, who has been with Williams for a minute now. And then Logan Sargeant, who is, I believe, in his second year with Williams.
He's American, isn't he?
Yes, he's an American driver. Alex Albon is British, but I think he races as under the Thailand flag.
I don't know about all that, but
Taiwan, Thailand, something like that. Anywho, so basically, what happened is that Alex is typically known to be the stronger of the two drivers. And so when they were, I believe, in their practice sessions, he crashed his car out and they didn't have a third car. Like they weren't going to be able to make repairs to his car, and they didn't have a third chassis like to put the engine and stuff in. Like they didn't have a car for him to drive. And so the team principal, who's like the boss of the team, he basically was like, Logan, you're going to sit out this race and Alex is going to use your car and he's going to drive your car.
That's fucked. Yep. That's fucked up.
And do you know what's so funny is that on the day of the Australian GP, when they're racing, so that was Alex's birthday. And so one of the I guess announcers or someone commentating on the race said, happy birthday to Alex Albon, and his birthday present, Logan Sargeant's car.
Yeah, no, the announcers were very shady. Oh my god. There was some of those people shady, and it's very funny. We were watching the live show or whatever, and they were all like in like pit where all the cars were and stuff. And so they said, and one of the problems with Mercedes, the cameraman dead ass goes to Lewis Hamilton, and then they go back to the car. But the way they worded it was like, one of the problems with Mercedes is, and literally,
and then goes to Lewis,
and then goes back to the car. And I was like, that's wrong. Y'all wrong for that. Y'all wrong for that, because damn well it ain't him. Damn well, because
literally the camera work is like a side eye, and they're like, what are the problems with Mercedes?
But I'm like, what? People are so fucking like basic, because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and act like I have been watching every single Formula One race. Obviously, I haven't. But I think it's so funny to see people turn on an actual legend because of like, well, okay, so like 1 second it's not the car. The next, it is the car. Oh, no, it's his skill. No, it's that. And I'm like, we'll put Lewis in the Red Bull, see what happens. Is it going to be different? Put Max in the Mercedes. Is it different? I'm not saying the skill level's not there, but I'm saying obviously all these teams develop their cars differently. Mm-hmm. And so they're not the exact same. Put them all in the same exact car just for like a race for fun and see what happens. Yeah, and that's
that's been a long-standing kind of like, it's one of those things where people always want to argue because it's the same as like when people have the debate of like, oh, well, who's the best basketball player of all time? Is it LeBron James or is it Michael Jordan? Like, you can have the argument, but because we've never seen them compete like head to head in that way when they're at their primes, you're never going to know. And so it's one of those things where like in Formula One, you're always going to have that argument and it's always going to be a debate because the only way you can actually compare two drivers to each other strictly head to head is when they're on the same team driving the same car.
Yeah, 100.
And even then, some of that, like they might set up their cars a little bit differently, but some of that is up to the personal preference of the driver. But yeah, I mean, that's the only way you're actually gonna know.
Well, see, and I've pointed out, I'm like, because I mean, and this is again, no shade to any current driver or the newer ones like Max Verstappen, but talking about people within history, I'm like, okay, but at the end of the day, I don't agree with saying, I don't like this statement like best, like he's gonna go down in history as the best. No, you're going to go down in history as the best for like that time period of that technology because I'm sorry, if Ayrton Senna was alive in his prime right now, no one could fucking touch him.
But also the way that they drive, the cars are just completely different.
Well, I know, but I'm saying the physical strength too. I mean, I know the cars go faster now as well, but it's just like there was so much less help in the cars those guys used to drive in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Because they didn't have power steering, did they?
For a time they didn't, yeah. And so I'm like, you put something, and so the skill level, like Senna was wild. That dude was fucking like probably the actual best in the entire world. And I'm like, it's just, you can't judge who the best is ever going to be when you can judge the best for a time period or like for this particular technology or how, because I'm like.
I mean, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, the sport when, 20 years ago is so different to what it is now.
Yeah.
Much less a bigger jump in time, so you can't compare. Like you said, You can only compare them you can only evaluate them based on the time period that they raced in.
Yeah.
And who their competition was and how they did then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even like Max Verstappen, he's said before, like, when people bring up all the numbers of, oh, you've scored more points than this many people, or you won this many races in this amount of time, And they're like, how does it feel? And he's like, well, I mean, the numbers, that kind of stuff doesn't really matter to me because he's like, well, yeah, obviously I've scored more points in a single season than any other driver because we're racing more. We're doing more races.
Exactly.
Because he's like, Michael Schumacher wasn't doing this many races when he was, racing.
Exactly.
They're doing, I think, 23, 24 races now. They're like, they used to do not over 20.
No, exactly.
And so he's like, duh, of course I did. Like, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. See, and that's like perspective and like being humble. And it's like, it's true.
The only other way you would be able to even try to compare them would be to take like if they did 19 races, you would have to take like the top 19 finishes, of out of the 23 or 24 that like Max has done in a season. Like, and then you could compare the points maybe, but even then it's still not a one-to-one comparison. No. So we had talked about a little bit before, like Formula One's gotten bigger in the US in the last couple of years, mainly due to Drive to Survive. Because at first they used to only have the race in Austin, Texas.
And which was still like relatively new.
Yeah. And then 2 years ago, they added the Miami GP. And then last year was the first time they did the Las Vegas GP. Mm-hmm. And so now we have 3 races in the US. And it's starting to pick up more and more steam. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's good for Formula One as a whole. And I think Formula One wants to tap into the American market because they haven't been able to for so long.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people who have been longtime Formula One fans, especially people in Europe, that are very critical of or think that 3 races in the US is too much and too many. And to them, I say, suck my dick.
Caw, bitch, America, bald eagle. I'm gonna tell you.
Because even with like us having 3 races in the US, where we live, none of those 3 races are close to us. Like
the closest one is Miami, which is 6 hours away.
Yeah, and
y'all get to hop on a train
and go to a country that's like 4 or 5 countries over, and you're there. Like
you're there in like 3 or 4 hours. That's not how it is here.
It's not the same at all.
No.
We're just so geographically large that it makes sense to have more races in our country.
Yeah, it makes more sense to treat America like how they treat Europe and treat it as like each state is its own little country.
Yeah.
Because like if you look at it like, oh, you should only have 1 race in the US, bro, we're huge. We're practically our own continent, except, we have Canada and Mexico. But it's like, bruh, it's just not the same.
No.
And if you look at it, I think if people were to really take the time to look at that, they would go, oh, yeah, it's like not the same.
They
like,
just don't have a concept.
They don't understand how many times like certain countries fit in a state. Like one state of ours. I'm like, bro, we're huge. So it's like, 3 races really isn't that much over here because, I mean, even from like Miami to Texas to Las Vegas, like you're still nowhere up north.
Nope.
Like those are all relatively kind of like on the south side of the U.S., but like you're doing east, like middle, and then west, but there's nothing up north for nobody.
Nope. And then we talked about how, so I feel like with Formula One teams in particular, and with the drivers and the way that the fandom sort of works, I feel like a lot of countries, especially like the European countries and stuff, they're like, they have either their team that's based in their country or they have a driver that comes from their country. And they're like, that's my guy, that's my team, that's who I'm going to support. And so there's a lot of like sort of like national pride kind of thing that goes into it. So like France is all about, they have Alpine, which is a French team, and then they have Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, which are 2 French drivers on the French team, and they're like creaming themselves. They just love it.
Ew.
Yeah, gross. So they're like all about
Not to the French, but to your description. Ew.
And so I think that we don't really... And I mean, I think that the UK is the most well represented in Formula One in terms of how many drivers from the UK there are. And I'm trying to think of what all the, I think it's just, Williams is a British team. Are they the only British team? I don't know.
Because I don't even know what is Red Bull considered.
Austrian.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Mercedes is German. McLaren is, I think, a British team, but they have factories in the US. I don't know. Anywho,
I don't know.
But so I say that to say, I feel like Formula One is kind of trying to approach the US in that way. Like if we can get, we've already got an American team in Formula One. So Haas, which is not a great team right now.
I feel like they weren't that bad yesterday. They were in the middle. They were trying. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. Like from the way everyone talks, I was like, it could have been way worse for them. Granted, I'm not.
The last couple of years have been rough for us.
I'm just saying, like when I was watching yesterday, I was like, okay, well, like other people got it. Yeah. They lower than them. They're more like, I guess they're trying to climb their way to like be a middle.
They're trying to not be number 10 out of the 10 teams. That's like that's their only goal right now. If I can be
9, I'll be happy.
For real. So Haas is an American team, but the US as a whole isn't really familiar with Haas as like a brand. Or a manufacturer or anything like that.
I would not hear Haas and assume that was American.
Yeah. And so it's technically an American team and the owner is American, but like we don't really have a connection to that. So they're like, okay, well, if it's not the team that the US is gonna like attached to, maybe it'll be a driver. So we really need an American driver in Formula One.
Then they kicked him out of the race.
Yeah, and so so Logan Sargeant is right now the only American driver in Formula One, and he has not been doing like great. This is his 2nd season, I believe, and he's not been doing awesome. And he did, like you said, he didn't even get to race yesterday.
No, he's the Williams driver.
And so the US is kind of like, I don't know that that's our guy. Like, and I feel like
Americans like Verstappen because they like a winner. I feel like I've noticed one thing. America's like, who's number 1? That's my guy.
Exactly. If we're as a country getting into a new sport, and kind of it's grabbing our attention for the first time.
Yeah.
And we're trying to pick our team as a whole or our driver as a whole. We want the winner. We want who's number one. We want the best. And so for a minute, that was Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. And I think at that time, people in the U.S. who were aware of Formula One have followed it.
They were Hamilton fans.
They were Hamilton fans?
They were Hamilton fans.
They were Hamilton fans?
Yeah.
But now that it's becoming even bigger, all the new fans are kind of like, who's winning? Verstappen? Okay.
And
Red
the
Bull?
girls are like, who's hot? Charles.
Yeah. Yes.
That's just a fact.
Yes. Can't
It's
confirm.
just a fact.
But so I think that we're having this sort of, I don't want to call it an identity crisis, but in the US, we're kind of like trying to figure out, I think Formula One is still trying to figure out the US market and how to make it work within Formula One. And you and I talked about yesterday some about how Formula One is different from other sports that are more well established in the US in that with football, baseball, basketball, you can be a very casual fan. You could not even really be a fan, and you could still go with someone to a game and kind of follow along. And it's an experience. You get to get the snacks and the food, and then there's like chants and cheers and the seventh inning stretch in baseball. Not the ninth inning, it's seventh inning. And so there's different things that kind of like make it more appealing to people who are very casual fans of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Formula One has that because in person, it's kind of boring to watch a Formula One race. If you're going to be there in the stands, like watching, because you only see a very small portion of the track.
Yeah.
You really can't see what else is going on unless there's screens around the track that you can see. But even then, it's kind of hard to see. And so it's a lot easier to follow what's going on when you're watching it on TV.
Yeah.
And so I think that going to a race in person, and I think they've tapped into this some with the 3 races in the US, where they're doing a lot more to make the in-person experience more of like a party vibe. And so there's a lot more activities and there's a lot more like drinking and food, and they're making it a whole
celebrities out the wazoo going to these. Zac Efron was at the Australian one yesterday.
Yeah. And so they're trying to make it more of a thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is working, but it's still so expensive to go.
Yeah.
That they've got to figure out how to kind of.
Even outside of that, I mean, I think you could be, like we were saying yesterday, you can be a casual fan of football, but you're tuning in for the Super Bowl. So, but it's like Formula One is still gathering that like casual fandom in America. But I think too, Americans, we really can rally behind something like. It's not like this is the first time we've ever tapped into European markets. I mean, there was the whole, I don't know if you've seen them. I don't remember what the movie's called. But anyway, it's basically about Ford and Le Mans and things like that. And so like we've done.
Was it like Gran Turismo? That was about Le Mans. Oh.
Nope. I don't think it was Gran Turismo. No. I don't think
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll have to look it up later. But anyway, there's a movie. It has Matt Damon and people in it. And
Ford versus Ferrari?
Yeah, that's it. But what I'm saying is there's a long history of us in European like motorsports outside of like this. So it's like Formula One though has just been something we haven't really gotten into, but like America has a presence in like other motorsports in Europe. And so, but it's Ford. It's an American brand that we're all very familiar with and we can root for. And we're like, that's American. So I'm like, I don't know. It's like, so it's like when you hear Haas, I'm like, what's that? What is that shit?
But
I don't know what that is.
Ford had a team.
If Ford had a team, I'd be buying Ford gear, Ford jacket.
You're like, I'm Ford.
It's because it's ingrained in me as an American where I'm like, oh, that.
Ford is American made.
Because I'm like, I can identify that without needing to know some niche history of a company that they're American. I'm like, Ford's American. Henry Ford. I know that. It's engraved in my brain and my DNA to know that. So I'm going to immediately be like, I want them.
Which in 2 years, Ford will be the engine provider for Red Bull for their cars.
Yeah.
Because Ford is,
America.
or because Red Bull is right now, their engine's made by Honda and they will be parting ways in 2 years and Ford will be taking over that sort of role for them. And so I think that is going to even more increase Red Bull's popularity.
And Max's with America, man. Yeah. Like, if we can justify that it's American, we're going to be like, America.
And I mean, I also think that Red Bull is such a recognizable, again, it comes down to like branding.
Yeah.
And so out of all the Formula One teams and the actual team names, the ones we know and recognize off the bat are literally Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and maybe McLaren up there in the top 4. And I mean, we have Aston Martin, but
I haven't recognized that.
Yeah, but it's not as like as big. I feel like.
I don't know. I mean, I think if you're into motorsports at all, you're going to know. I think people would be familiar enough with it, but they're not going to feel any type of way. It's like if you heard there was a Bentley team, you're like, what?
You know what's interesting is that out of those, 5 teams I just mentioned that would probably be the most recognizable based on their name, 4 of those 5 are actual like car manufacturers. The only one who isn't is Red Bull, which I mean has been a conversation about Red Bull before in the world of Formula One about how like this energy drink is coming into this, motorsport racing and stuff like that. But they have
a presence in sports in general.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's like their whole thing.
Yeah.
But like,
it is weird.
But yeah, so it's interesting how out of those 5 I mentioned, 4 of them are actual like car manufacturers. And that's how we know their brand is because they make cars.
Yeah.
Because the other ones we don't really recognize the names of it's like, what do you even say? Like Williams, they're literally like a racing team. Like that's what they started as. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Haas. Don't know what they do. Don't know what Gene Haas does. That's the owner. And then we've got Sauber, which I think right now they're called Kick Sauber.
Yeah. They're the ones where they're
they were Alfa Romeo.
The name looks like 8-bit video game font. From like when I saw that, I was like, hey, that looks very retro.
And then we've got who else? Oh, RB, which is like basically Red Bull's like junior team.
That's what Travis said. I said, why? Does anybody else have a fucking...
No.
But there was a team that said something Mercedes. There's another team when I was looking and it said, what fucking team was it? And it's like, it literally said the name of the team and the next to it was like Mercedes. So it's like,
Williams has a long time been considered sort of Mercedes version of a junior team, but they're not actually both. I don't think they're both owned by the same people.
But I don't know that RB is, because
RB is owned by Red Bull. They basically,
that's
because
crazy.
Literally it's nuts because they used to be called like Toro Rosso and they also used to be called like, what were they called? Toro Rosso, and then it doesn't matter. Anyway, so basically
that should be like a Formula 2 team.
A couple years ago, they had a thing where Max was their number 1 driver and they were trying to figure out who their number 2 driver was. And so at one point they had Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon were racing for, at the time it was Toro Rosso. They were AlphaTauri after they were Toro Rosso. But at the time, they were called Toro Rosso. And so we had Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly racing for AlphaTauri. And then they pulled Pierre Gasly from AlphaTauri and put him in the second Red Bull seat in the middle of the season. Yeah, and so he was racing for a little bit, and then he wasn't doing so hot. I think that's what... Yeah, and then they pulled him out and put Alex Albon in the seat. And like they were swapping their drivers around between those 4 seats. And so a lot of people, especially the teams, were complaining about how...
That's weird.
Yeah, about how Red Bull basically has 2 teams and 4 seats when all the other teams only have 1 team and 2 seats.
Yeah, that's stupid.
And like they literally were allowed to do that because it was like written into like the contracts and the way they had the contract set up. And I know that sometimes like some teams share like reserve drivers. Mm-hmm. So like there's like a Formula 2 driver. So I think Ollie Behrman, who raced in place of Carlos Sainz 2 weeks ago.
He's like 18 years old, right?
Yeah, he races in Formula 2, but he also has contracts with Ferrari and with Haas as a reserve driver. Yeah. So if one of their drivers gets sick, injured, whatever, they can pull him to step in.
That doesn't
place.
seem that as bad as having like 2 teams where you get to just like
swap
play
around.
Musical drivers.
And that's exactly what they did that one season. And it was nuts. But so a lot of people have complained about that before, like a lot.
That's
especially
bizarre.
the teams within Formula One, especially Mercedes.
Well, like why wouldn't you though? Like that's just weird.
And so for the last couple of years, Williams has been considered sort of the junior team for Mercedes. So like George Russell, who currently drives for Mercedes, when he first got pulled up to Formula One, he raced for Williams for a couple of seasons. Basically to get experience, to get his rookie years out of the way. And then when there was a seat, he moved up to Mercedes.
Yeah.
And so they kind of use it as like a development, like a junior team or whatever. But I think at this point, I'm pretty sure Toto Wolff owns or partially owns Williams or has like a stake in Williams.
I don't know. I saw the dude that works for McLaren. I guess he's like the big dog over there. Something Zach Brown. I'm like, is he American?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's doing an interview and I'm like, that's a Southern motherfucker right there. I was like, that's American. And I was like, McLaren? American, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to mention,
Maybe?
so we've got an American team in Haas. We've got an American driver in Logan Sargeant who races for Williams. And then we've got an American team principal in Zach Brown who works for
But
McLaren.
they just renewed his contract to 2030 or whatever. They said that yesterday, and I was like, huh. Well, so yeah, I don't know who my team is yet, and we're not gonna do any why were you yelling stories because we yap too much about Formula One, which that's fine. But yeah. So if you watched the race yesterday, what did you think? Let us know.
Who's your team?
Who's your team?
Even if you don't know anything about Formula One,
Like, who are you gonna pull for? Like,
just pick.
yeah.
Pick one.
Who's your team? Who's your driver? Like,
It doesn't matter why you like them. You can like the color. You can like the name. One of the drivers.
Doesn't matter. But so yeah, if you're a Formula One person, tell us your driver and your team. I'm trying to pick mine, so I'd like to gather everyone's thoughts. I haven't settled in yet.
Help her decide. Make an argument for or against.
Yeah, make an argument for the driver and your team. Get me to try to join.
Yeah.
Recruit
her.
I'm still picking. I'm still, because I mean, obviously I'm Lewis Hamilton all day. Like, that's not going to change. But for me, like, who am I? I'm really leaning towards Ricciardo because I've felt like, even though he finished wherever, I was impressed with his steady climb. And I was impressed with seeing, because like it shows you like, oh, he's 6 seconds behind. And let me tell you, it'd be 6, then 5, then 4. And to me, he was one of the only drivers who was really doing that, where you could see climbing.
Making progress.
And I was like, to me, that's impressive. Like, you know.
The only thing with Ricciardo is that he has team hopped. He basically changes teams once every year or two over the last several seasons, like probably over the last several seasons.
So buying merch will be hard.
Yes, that would be the problem.
Yeah. So I'm like, I mean, team wise, I don't really know. I feel like I know who I'm leaning towards, but we'll see. So if you have any, if you want to have an input in my decision, leave a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not reading stories today. We'll read them next time because one, I don't know how long the other one is. Both are really long. We do have an update from Shirley. It was funny, actually. I went ahead and read it to see what it was because I was like, oh my God, there he is. But anyway, sorry guys. We'll read your responses next time because we've been yapping for a long time. And if you do have a why were you yelling story that you want to submit, just go to the link in our bio on Instagram and the form is there and let us know why you were yelling.
It's also in the description for this episode too.
Yeah. So that kind of covers that, I guess.
Okay. We will talk at you next time.
Bye.
Bye.